I will tell you this, guys. I've said this before. There's going to be two big differences between the first administration and this. America First Policy Institute and the Heritage Foundation and others were developing menu options, policies, fully baked, and saying, hey, if you want to go down this path, here you go. They were not directing anybody. They're basically saying, hey, we've thought through all these things. They're fully completed. We didn't have that in 2016. Can you imagine if we had all of these things coordinated, staffed, vetted, and that's what they're doing. And they are going to hit the ground running. The people that are coming into this administration are loyal to President Trump, and they are going to execute his agenda. And then these policy and issues, they're not worried about norms, how things used to work, how it's always been. President Trump is going to hit the ground running on January 20th and take Washington by storm. All right, guys. If you thought the election was crazy, this transition, I mean, it just keeps going. Like, there's no downtime, is there? It's fun. It's fun. We've got a lot to talk about. The latest personnel decisions, I got them. We'll talk about them. The Senate majority race is tomorrow. Rick Scott, John Thune, John Cornyn. Efforts to make it an open ballot are still underway. And just some insight into the process, because, guys, buckle up. This is going to be very different. So we got a lot to get into. Tommy Tuberville, senator from Alabama, is here. Chad Wolf's going to give us the scoop on border security efforts. Before I get to that, just if you owe back taxes, the October deadline, you could file your taxes if you had gotten an extension up until October 15th. Obviously, that's gone. The Democrats are still in charge, at least for a little while. And so if you owe taxes, personal business, it doesn't really matter the amount, 5,000, 5 million, who cares? The IRS knows what they're doing. I mean, let's be honest. These guys mean business. And so if you get a pay up notice, is what they call them, a letter in the mail saying, hey, we're auditing you, or a call or a knock on your door, whatever it is, don't try to go it alone. The folks at Tax Network have been doing this for years. They've saved over $1 billion for their clients. But the thing is, they know the inside out. They know which agents are willing to deal, willing to be good, which ones are tough. So they know the ins and outs of the IRS. These guys are your best advocates. They've helped resolve problems for so many people, and they can do it for you. They've got a total edge when it comes to dealing with the IRS. And as I've said before, do not try to go up against the federal government by yourself. It doesn't usually end well. So give them a call, 1-800-905-8000 or tnusa.com/Sean. Just SEAN, tnusa.com/Sean. Don't try to go at the IRS by yourself. Go to visit the folks at Tax Network USA. These are the folks that I trust. If the IRS comes for me, tnusa.com/Sean. All right. Quick announcement off the top. I've gotten a ton of emails and questions, as well as, if you watched the morning meeting, Dan Turrentine, who was a chief of staff on the Hill. He was Hillary Clinton's finance director. We've both gotten a lot of questions about jobs in politics. How do you get a job? How do you get a job on a campaign? How do you get a job in the administration? And we're willing to do a Zoom, basically, with everybody. You can watch it on my YouTube channel just here if you've subscribed. On November 17th, it's a Sunday night at 7 o'clock. We'll read your questions in the chat. So just, if you have somebody that you know that's like, hey, I want to break into politics, I want a job on Capitol Hill, I want a job on a campaign, I want a job in the administration, we'll at least share with you what we know, how the system works. So mark your calendars now, Sunday, November 17th at 7 p.m. All right, the latest on personnel. Mike Waltz, the Florida congressman, in at National Security. He will be the National Security Advisor for the president. Doesn't require Senate confirmation, so it's a done deal. I'm going to go in a minute about the consequences of that. Former New York Congressman Lee Zeldin will head up the EPA. Elise Stefanik, New York Congresswoman, currently in office, which means there'll have to be a race for her seat. Kathy Hochul, the governor, will have to set that. Probably a solid couple months that Republicans will be down her and Waltz. You've got Stephen Miller, apparently Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy. Tom Homan, who we've discussed being the border czar. And then new out, it looks like Marco Rubio, the senator from Florida, will be Secretary of State, and Kristi Noem, the governor of South Dakota, as the Secretary of Homeland Security. Okay, so I'm going to talk about that with Chad Wolf, because how does that dynamic going to work with Stephen Miller and Tom Homan, and then her as the secretary? That's going to talk about this. But also with Marco Rubio out, DeSantis, the governor there, has a choice on who to appoint. I tweeted this out, but he's basically got three folks. He could appoint himself. He could step down and have the lieutenant governor, Jeanette Nunez, appoint him. Okay. He could appoint a caretaker, which some people think that's where he's headed. I don't know how that's going to go over in Trump world. They're talking about his chief of staff or something like that, or maybe Ashley Moody, the attorney general, that would probably have to agree that they wouldn't run in the future. But I think Trump world would want somebody in there who, even if a caretaker, is going to support the agenda, right? And not be a wishy-washy. Or, I mean, here's another thought. What if he appointed, a Trump who happens to live in Florida as the senator, who could maybe then not just be a senator, but in 2 years be a running mate to J.D. Vance? Just a thought, Tom Cotton, the senator from Arkansas, took himself out of the running to be DOD chair. As you know, he's slated to be chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, which will be really important. But Tom Cotton has small kids, and I think everyone who's looking around just doesn't get it, that like he wants to be a good dad. And so lots of people are taking themselves out. You saw Senator Bill Hagerty, who wanted to be Secretary of State, is saying that he doesn't want to play a role in the administration anymore. So the question sometimes is, did you take yourself out, or did you know you weren't getting picked? And then you've got Senator Eric Schmidt from Missouri. He was apparently in contention to be Attorney General. He's saying that he's taken himself out. But speaking of the Senate, we've got the Senate Majority Leader race tomorrow, right? So you've got Rick Scott from Florida, John Thune, South Dakota, and John Cornyn of Texas. Now, look, if you look at MAGA world, there's no question everyone's lining up behind Rick Scott. And there's also calls that this should be an open vote. Right now, it's very clubby. It's like, oh, we get to vote in private. At most, what are you guys hiding? Like, why don't you tell us who you're going to vote for? Why would you be embarrassed of this? Come out and tell us. I think that's the first step that they owe us, is to not hide, their vote. Tell us who you're going to be behind. I think Trump world is getting behind Rick Scott because they think he will not just stand for the status quo. The guy's going to shake things up. He did as governor. He's done as senator. So anyway, and then my last sort of thread on the Senate is, take a look at what Chuck Schumer did today. It was amazing. So Dave McCormick, we told you, won the Senate race in Pennsylvania. He beat Bob Casey. But Chuck Schumer wasn't going to allow Dave McCormick, because he's still the majority leader, at least for another, month. He wasn't going to let Dave McCormick attend orientation. What a petty little man. And then two things happened. One, I think he realized Republicans are like, great, we'll walk Dave in personally. He'll be our +1 because he's coming. And then Ruben Gallego got declared the winner out in Arizona. The AP called that for Kari Lake. I mean, for him over Kari Lake. So Schumer then, since both of them can come. So wait a second, it wasn't good enough when it was just McCormick. But now that you can say that you're going to bring Ruben Gallego, the Democrat from Arizona, at the last minute, he's going to let them both in. Just, the guy is just unbelievably petty and hypocritical. I can't get over this. I will tell you this, guys. I've said this before. There's going to be two big differences between the first administration and this. Everybody who, obviously we were out in the wilderness for 4 years, but it was not for nothing. America First Policy Institute, you see the guests that come on, and Chad Wolf is over there now. He's going to be on in just a minute. And the Heritage Foundation and others were developing menu options, policies, fully baked, and saying, hey, if you want to go down this path, here you go. They were not directing anybody. They're basically saying, hey, we've thought through all these things. They're fully completed. We didn't have that in 2016. I tell people all the time, we were building the airplane in midair. It was historic and amazing. But can you imagine if we had all of these things coordinated, staffed, vetted, whatever? And that's what they're doing. And they are going to hit the ground running. The people that are coming into this administration are loyal to President Trump. And they are going to execute his agenda. And then these policy and issues, they're not worried about norms, how things used to work, how it's always been. President Trump is going to hit the ground running on January 20th and take Washington by storm. Just buckle up. Trust me on this. They know that not only do they only have 4 years, but they can guarantee too that they have a Republican Senate and a Republican House. So they are laser focused, and they are not going to waste a minute. And trust me, all these guys in the media, this isn't how it's supposed to work. Screw how it's supposed to work. Get things done. And that's where the president's coming in on this. It's funny though. We talked and bragged a little bit, let's be honest, about how we've gotten this all right. Well, this is a show that you can come on and you're getting the inside scoop, right? We called J.D. Vance. We nailed the election, 12 electoral votes. And people are now voting with their feet. The MSNBC crowd is walking away. Elizabeth McDonald tweeted out the Nielsen ratings. Check this out. Morning Joe down 39.6%. Andrea Mitchell down 39.7%. Ari Melber down 49.6%. Joy Reid down 54.6%. Alex Wagner down 53%. Lawrence O'Donnell down 60.6%. And the big winner herself, the woman who endorsed Kamala Harris, Stephanie Ruhle, down 67%. People are saying, bye-bye, MSNBC. We don't need you anymore. And when I say things are going to be different, look for, they're talking about big monumental change, moving potentially departments out of Washington, D.C., decentralizing the power here. This is so good, and I'm so excited. But here's the one thing that I do want to stress. Republicans need to be a team. If Mike Waltz and Elise Stefanik leave Congress, as is reported, that gets the majority. There is no majority. It's 218, right? They have 220 right now. They'll have a 1-seat majority. The speaker will have to vote. Mike Johnson needs to step up and lead and say, friends, we still have some disagreements. I get it. But Donald Trump needs us to be a team for him. We can't afford dissension for the next few months while we go reelect new people to Elise Stefanik's seat and Mike Waltz's seat. And who knows? We need to be a team for Donald Trump to make real substantive change. He needs to take this moment, rise to the occasion, and instill a sense of team in the House Republicans to get things done. Dissension will not work. Anyway, all right, as I said, Tommy Tuberville, the senator from Alabama, is here. We're going to break down what's going on in the Senate with him. Then Chad Wolf will be here. When Chad is here, I'm going to try to get into this dynamic about, you got Kristi Noem as Homeland Security and Stephen Miller and Tom Homan. Hopefully he can shed some light on that. All right, before I bring in Senator Tuberville, real quick, full transparency, I've always struggled with weight as an adult, and I've tried every fad diet you can imagine. I talked to my buddy Seb Gorka, you saw him on the show, and I said, dude, what are you doing? You look great. Because, I'm confident in myself. I can say these things. And he said, Sean, you must talk to the folks at PhD Weight Loss. And I was like, okay. And it was amazing. I'm down, I don't know, almost 5 pounds in 2 weeks. That's the point, though. They're like, we're going to talk to you about your lifestyle, nutrition, and make this a journey for you to get you to a weight and then figure out how to maintain it. You talk to a real live person, a nutritionist. You have weekly weigh-ins and consultations with them. They send you some starter foods. It's unbelievable how that helps. It's like if you go to the gym and have a trainer, this is like having a nutritional trainer. They're there to guide you. I text back and forth. They'll say, hey, you're going out to eat. Here are the things that you can do at that particular restaurant, whatever. You set reachable goals. I mean, I love this thing. You get the food at no extra cost, by the way. So it's really cool how they structure this thing to get you going. I've enjoyed it. If you want to schedule a one-on-one consultation, call 864-664-1900 or go online at myphdweightloss.com, myphdweightloss.com. Okay. Let's bring in Senator Tommy Tuberville to talk about the transition and the race for Senate Majority Leader. When he's done, Chad Wolf on border security. Let's bring in Senator Tuberville. Hey, Coach, how are you? Good to be with you.
Been a great week. Been a great, 7 days, Sean, since the election. It's been a great time. The nightmare is over for a while. I guess we've still got about 30 days of working here with the Democrats, with them in charge. But hopefully very soon we take over and we get off to a running start, because we're going to need to take those first 100 days and get this country back on its feet.
What put a bigger smile on your face, this election night or winning a national title?
Well, they both go hand in hand.
Good answer.
Hey, Sean, both are hard work. I'll tell you that. And I'll tell you, President Trump put in a lot of hard work. We had a lot of good candidates in the House and Senate, and and the people responded, even Democrats, people that still love our country. There's still a lot of people, no matter what side of the bridge you're on, that love this country and want to stay as it was and not as it was headed.
Have you had a chance to talk to President Trump since the election?
No, we've texted, but I know how busy he is. I can remember just in a small part when I took a new coaching job. You go in and you got to hire and you got to fire and you got to do all these things. And I can't imagine being overwhelmed with what he has to do, because he knows that when January 20th gets here, he's got no time to rest. And so it's going to be a process of getting all these people confirmed. Recess appointments are going to be at hand. We'll have to work something out, probably with the Democrats, because it's a 60 count vote. But at the end of the day, Sean, we have a chance. The country has a chance to survive.
Yeah, no, I agree. Let me ask you this. I want to get to the recess appointments and to the staffing. But first and foremost, we've got a Senate Majority Leader election tomorrow. Can you just paint for viewers a lay of the land? Where are we with this among the three candidates, and what's going to happen between, this evening and tomorrow?
Yeah, first of all, we need to change it from leadership to spokesperson for the Senate GOP. The leader is going to be J.D. Vance along with President Donald J. Trump. They're going to set the agenda. But we've got people here, rhinos, that want to fight back and they want to control it all. We're going to get on the side of President Trump, or we'll have a lot of upset people, especially people in my state like Alabama. They want somebody that's going to follow Donald Trump. I'm representing and voting tomorrow for Rick Scott. Rick Scott is not a politician other than the few years he's been here and being governor for a few years. He was a business guy. He understands the lingo with President Trump. I think they can trust each other. How can you trust people that weren't with President Trump until about 6-7 months ago in our own party? So it'll be interesting. Tonight at 6, we sat down with all three of them. The caucus, they give their spiel about how they're going to do things and what they're going to do. They're going to say the right things. But at the end of the day, I've seen this before. I've seen this same picture. Let's pick somebody with new ideas, new strategy. We've got a new party. We've got a new party that, 3/4 of the Native Americans, 45% of Hispanics, 46% of Asians, Sean, voted for Donald Trump. This is not a Republican Party that you and I knew it 5 years ago. This is a new party built with new people.
Yeah. So where do you think it stands right now among the three in terms of votes from your colleagues?
Well, the people look at the second in charge, and, McConnell's had a lot of say, and John Thune's been working with him for 6 years, 7 years, whatever. It doesn't just go your leader; it also goes the staff around the leader. And I'm interested in whichever one. Is it going to be a new staff? Is it going to be the same staff? Again, this is a new direction for this country, and we need to take advantage of it. So there's a lot of things that need to be said and then going to need to be done. But again, at the end of the day, Sean, we've got a majority. We're not a party that's going to fall in line like the Democrats. You can't tell me that all 51 of the Democrats the last few years believe that men should play in women's sports, or men could have babies, or have an open border, but they fall in line like ducks because they get their campaign money from Chuck Schumer. We're not going to do that. Now, we're going to support President Trump, and we're going to be behind his agenda, but we'll have people that's going to fight back a little at times. We just need to all get on the same page early to show our support.
It seems to me, at least, that Rick Scott has the wind at his back. Like, more and more people are coming out publicly and saying that they're behind him. Do you think is he cresting at the right time in this race?
I really think he is. Again, a lot of people probably committed to John Thune before the election. Cornyn and Rick Scott are kind of second and third, but remember, somebody's got to get 27. There's not going to be a 27, I would think, on the first ballot. So you're going to eliminate either Cornyn or Scott, and then there's going to be people that's not going to vote for John Thune. And then if those two can combine their votes for one or the other, you'll have somebody other than him. But again, I want somebody that's going to stand up for the American people and stand up in our meetings, caucus meetings, and say, listen, I know a lot of you are on the other side on this, but we've got to come to a conclusion and work it out with the president. This is his agenda. This is what the people voted for, a mandate to get this country going in the right direction again.
Yeah, I do think that that's absolutely right. By the way, I love the question about staff. People don't fully appreciate that, but your finger's on the pulse there, because if they just keep, the staff can be very powerful. And if they just keep the same people that McConnell has, then you're going to get a lot of the same results. And I hope that you bring that question up, because I think that, to me, you've put your finger on something really, really interesting. And so I hope it comes up. Let me ask you this. There's a lot of people on the outside in MAGA world, Tucker Carlson, Charlie Kirk, that are trying to get people on board to support Rick Scott. And a lot of the folks in the media say senators are insulated from that kind of talk. Are senators insulated from that, or do you feel the effect of MAGA influencers trying to get support for Rick Scott?
No, they're not insulated. And I'll tell you how they're not insulated, because there are people back in their home state who are listening to these people like Elon Musk, as you said, Robert Kennedy Jr., Charlie Kirk, Tucker Carlson. And by the way, they're not a bunch of dummies, okay? They know the direction this country needs to go. They work at it every day as well as you. So, no, I think there's going to be some people that will start going, the people in my state, I'm getting hammered on emails and stuff. You should, because you're not representing you. You're representing your state. If I voted against Rick Scott, the people of Alabama will run me out of here, because he is the heir apparent to what people want to support President Trump.
There's a lot of talk right now. You guys, it's a closed door vote. Do you think that it should be made public who you're supporting for leader?
It is all coordinated by your present leader to do that. We had that last time also. I don't like that. I think people should stand behind their vote. If you don't have enough guts to stand up and say, listen, I voted for Thune, or I voted for Corner, and I voted for Rick Scott. How are you going to be able to hold up in a real tough situation when it comes to going against what the Democrats do? So I don't know why we don't do it. I think a lot of things have to be changed. Like tonight, I'm going to say, listen, I'm not the leader. Sean raises $500 million for every other year election, right? Well, he controls that $500 million to go to whoever he wants to go to. I'm for having a committee to do that now, because it's pretty easy. If I'm the leader up here as a Republican, I can raise $500 million, but I shouldn't control the people that it goes to in the states around the country. So if somebody gives you money, you feel bound once you get elected or get reelected to vote for that person. So I think we need to take that away. And again, I might be wrong here. I've just seen since I've been up here, it's been cherry picked of who gets the money, and nobody has any say so about it. And I think we need to go different directions there.
Would you be willing to say to folks tonight, despite the current rule, I think every senator should disclose publicly who they're voting for?
Yeah, and it will be said. I'm not high on the pecking list of people listening to me, because I hadn't been here as long as some of these people have been up here forever. But it will be said. It needs to be said. People need to know where their senator stands, or they can come out themselves and say it. Like I said a few days ago, said, listen, I'm not voting for me. I'm voting for people in Alabama have told me, you vote for Rick Scott, because we want President Trump's agenda to go through. Yes, I agree. So I put it out, and I was going to wait till after the night, after we listened to all three of them, but really it's no reason to do that, because, again, we got a new president. We got a mandate a week ago saying, listen, we want him to be president. We want his agenda to go through. Yes, I heard that.
Yeah, that should be common sense.
Yeah.
You brought up recess appointments at the beginning. So normally the president's cabinet and the deputy assistants and the whatever all go through Senate confirmation, right? And it's an arduous process. You guys vote, and there's a lot of talk that President Trump wants to bypass this process and allow recess appointments. So the Senate would recess, and then he would immediately appoint a bunch of these people in an acting capacity. Is that something that most of these folks seem open to?
Well, we hadn't all been together. If you ask me tomorrow, I'll be able to tell you that. I'm all for that, because I think even if it's a Democratic side, they should be able to do the same thing, because you only got a short period of time as president. Get your team together. It's like me taking a head coaching job. I go in and I never rehire anybody. I let everybody go and hire the people that I know that that I have confidence in. And the president of the United States should have the same thing. Now, the Supreme Court, a lot of people are saying, well, Supreme Court said you couldn't do that. Wait a minute. No. President Obama did two during supposedly recess, but to go back and look at it, it wasn't recess, it was pro forma. They weren't in recess. And so as long as you do it in recess, it's lawful. And so I'm hoping that we do this again. I wouldn't mind to, go through all this process. Let the Democrats have who they want. I mean, it's, when they're in power. So you can get a lot more done instead of standing around up here fiddling your thumbs and thinking that you can block something. They couldn't block it anyway, because we've got 53, Sean. You know that. I mean, it doesn't take the 51 votes. So we can get whoever we want. President Trump just needs them immediately.
So you're comfortable. I mean, it sounds from the way you just explained that you're comfortable in setting a precedent that all of these folks could be named in an acting capacity, even if the Democrats were to control the Senate and take back the White House in the future.
Yeah, I think there's going to have to be a vote on that, whether they can do it or not. Again, I'm not up on the law that far to understand the process of, does the Democrats have to approve of this up front? Does it have to be a 60 count vote? I'll know more about it once we get into this process. But just from a philosophical standpoint, I see what goes on up here. Either side, you should be able to pick your team and go with them, live or die. As senators up here, we're going to do the main ones, right? It's the people behind the scenes, that deputy secretaries and all that. Hey, let's get this over with. We spend all of our time with worrying about confirmations instead of doing the job to getting this country straight.
Breitbart has a story out, and it quotes you as saying, "I look forward to being a legislative sledgehammer for President Trump." What do you want the first couple pieces of legislation to be? I mean, tax cuts, border stuff. Is there anything that you want to be that sledgehammer for?
Yeah, tax reform has got to be number one, along with the border, Sean. We got to stop that border. We were looking down the barrel of a gun with these Democrats having an open border. We couldn't allow 15 to 20 million more people. We would have been over the top, and we'd have lawlessness across the country. One of the things that I really want to do is straighten this dang voting up across our country. We didn't get killed down ballot, but let me tell you something. Donald Trump pulled out more people to vote for him. And how in the world can some of these senators, and that's all I've looked at, and I'm sure a lot of it happened in the House, some of these senators received more votes, the Democrats, than President Trump. I mean, it doesn't add up to how all this went about. And so, as I was traveling the last month across the country, Sean, the one thing people didn't ask about the border or inflation, which they were very concerned about, by the way. You know what the first question was, Coach, is my vote going to count? And people really, really take that to heart, and they should. That's their one thing that they can say, listen, I got a chance to try to run these idiots out of a job, whether it's Republican or Democrat. And we need to get this straight. Voter ID, Kamala Harris won every state that was no voter ID. She did not win one that wasn't voter ID. And so think about that. And so I'm not saying that anything other than people need to think that their vote counts, and we can get more people out to vote. We're not getting people out to vote like they should. I think this might have been even close to a record, other than the year they found somewhere that in 2020 they found 20 million extra voters to vote for Joe Biden coming out of the basement. But we've got to get a handle on this, and we can do it up here if we'll sit down together as a Senate and say, listen, this is what we need to do.
Yeah, well, I appreciate your part. Last question for you. Is there anyone that you want to see in the Trump administration, a particular colleague of yours, anybody that you think they should, I'd really be excited that they are in the cabinet or in a top job?
Yeah, he's taken a few too many already. I hated to lose J.D. Vance, but I recommended J.D. to the president. I knew he's going to be a superstar in this business because he's smart. He can speak on his feet, which you have to do in politics. He doesn't mind fighting back. He never loses his poise. I hated to lose him. I hate to lose Marco Rubio. I mean, he's another guy that's going to be very good with President Trump. There's some others that he's looking at, but he can't just take all the people here that's going to fight for him. And first of all, as I tell people, somebody said, well, Marco Rubio, we're losing him to the Senate. I said, yeah. Secretary of State. I said, you know who the Secretary of State is? I said, well, Marco Rubio. I said, no, he's Deputy Secretary of State. Donald Trump, Secretary of State. He is going to run foreign policy. You know that, Sean, as well as I do. And you work for President Trump. You work for him. Right. I mean, you don't run it up. You run your department, but you take and that's the way we want it, because President Trump is on top of it. He's got great work ethic, and we need somebody like him right now. As I said earlier, I'm a sledgehammer for his legislative transition and the things he's getting ready to do, because I understand it. I've been here, and my God, Sean, we have been in trouble, And I've been keeping my fingers crossed that we could just hold these Democrats off and these socialists off till we got to a point where we get President Trump elected. And it's President Trump worked hard and he won this, but their candidate was bad, plus their policies were awful.
Yes,
and that's another reason he won.
All right, Coach. Thanks for being with us. Look forward to the results of tomorrow's race.
Well, all right. Let's talk soon. See you.
Okay. All right, that was a great conversation with Senator Tuberville. Excited to bring in Chad Wolf now and talk about border security and the dynamic on how all these people are going to work together. Before I do that, we're going to talk about some great people, but I have another great person I want to talk about, my buddy Leo Grillo of Delta Rescue. As you guys know, Delta Rescue is a no-kill sanctuary. They have been with us since the launch of this show. And it's not a shelter. Leo Grillo and I, when we first got to know each other, said, Sean, I was bragging, hey, I rescued dogs. I know, he's like, it's not a shelter. We bring malnutritioned, abused, neglected, abandoned animals of all stripes to Delta Rescue. And it's a no-kill sanctuary for life. It's amazing what they do and how they've grown. If you go into deltarescue.org, you can see the videos. You can see what I'm talking about. The cool thing about Leo is this is a personal mission for him. And he's not looking for like government handout and grants, right? He's asking us as animal lovers to help him. So if you can go to deltarescue.org and make a contribution, that would be super awesome. But also, and this is something that I first talked to Leo about, is like making this an enduring mission. So it's not just, figuring out how to make it month to month. If you can make Delta Rescue part of your estate, your legacy, click on the tab up there. You'll see it, estate planning. Just print it out. Look at it and say, hey, I'm an animal lover. Is this right for me? Please take the second and pray on that. Think about it, because I know that I would love to see the work that Leo is doing continue for generations to come. So it's deltarescue.org. Thank you very much. Without further ado, Chad Wolf. Chad, good to see you. A lot to get to in your wheelhouse. What do you think about this pick of Kristi Noem to lead DHS?
Look, I think it's a great pick. Obviously, she's been a very successful governor. She's leaned in on the border security mission. She's detailed or has provided a lot of her National Guard to go down to the border. And she's interacted with FEMA a lot there in South Dakota from an emergency management standpoint. So I think she's pretty well positioned to jump headfirst into the department and go from there.
You mentioned FEMA. I think people forget how massive DHS is. So kind of just real quick, like what are the big buckets that DHS covers?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously you've got a big immigration mission set there, but you also do emergency management. You do cybersecurity with CISA. You have the United States Secret Service. You have the Coast Guard, and you have Transportation Security Administration. Those are the airport screeners. And so you've got a lot of different operational components that you've got to juggle, a lot of different mission sets to try to keep the homeland safe.
So walk me through now. I mean, you were the guy that led this department, right? Trump's named Tom Homan to be somewhat of a border czar, Stephen Miller, Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy. How is that dynamic going to play out with everybody? Is it going to work well? Is it going to create some issues with jurisdiction?
I don't know that there'll be jurisdiction issues. I think there will be, there's always going to be a challenge for who has the best idea. But I think they'll coalesce around those, right? Because you have the first term of the Trump administration that will guide you a little bit on some of the policies that he pursued. But look, the environment has changed over the 4 years, so you're going to have to do some new things. And I think that's where the three of them will come together. And at the end of the day, the secretary, in this case, the governor, when confirmed, will have to operationalize it, right? We'll have to take the ideas from the White House and operationalize and put those ideas into action with her workforce. So I think that's going to be really important. She's led a state to do that, to implement an agenda, and I assume she'll do the same at DHS.
When you heard the news that Tom Homan was going to play this border czar role, what did that signal to you?
Well, it signaled that the incoming administration is really serious about this issue. Tom is a professional. He's got 30 years experience both at Border Patrol, but also at ICE, leading ICE during his last tour of duty, so to speak. He knows what the challenges are. He knows what the limitations are. He knows the law. But more importantly, he knows the operational cadence within ICE and the department. So I think he's going to provide a very valuable voice inside the White House and elsewhere to say, look, here's what we can do. Here's the timeline in which we can do it, and we can push. but there's only so much that you can do so fast. So hopefully he's that a little bit of a calming voice, and he's got that operational experience, which I think is just invaluable to say, hey, we can do this, but it's going to take a little time, or we can do it really, really quickly, and we should expect results quickly. And again, providing that balance in the White House, I think will be a good role for him.
A lot of the media is hysterical about mass deportations and all of this. How would you expect the initiatives to roll out?
Well, look, I think first and foremost, you're going to get different enforcement priorities from this administration than what you saw from the last administration. And again, it's important to remember that ICE removes or deports individuals every single day of the week, every day, every month, right, and every year. But what we've seen under the Biden-Harris team is that those deportations are the lowest that we have ever seen in the history of our country. And so you need to increase those. You need to prioritize and go after the worst of the worst. Those are the criminals. Those are the national security threats. Those are the final orders of removal. And you need to remove those. Even if you just look at that population alone, that's a historic number of removals. That's before you get to the other 12 or 13, 14, maybe even upwards to 18 million folks that are here illegally. So I think it's really important. The left is obviously trying to fearmonger. They're trying to tell everyone that, ICE is going to come for you in the middle of the night. That's not realistically how they do their job. They target the worst criminals in our communities, and they go after those folks, and they remove those folks first. And I think that's what you'll continue to see under President Trump.
I had an opportunity to visit the border down in Arizona a couple of weeks back, and I met with some of the deputies down there. And I asked them simply, what are the top things that you think would make a difference in the next administration? And they, without hesitation, said, 1, enforce the law, and 2, finish the wall. And I said, what do you mean by enforce the law? And the deputy said, well, the first time that you cross the border illegally, it's a misdemeanor. The second time, it's a felony. We got one guy we picked up 29 times. How important is that in your mind, that we send that signal that you're going to go to jail or you've broken a law?
Yeah, it's critically important. There's got to be consequences for illegal activity and illegal behavior. And you need to hold people accountable. The left is trying to play this game right now where they're saying, well, you can't remove families or you can't split up families. All that invites is individuals to come across with a family. And if they're a criminal, they're going to hope that they're not going to get removed because they're with a family. So it just invites more and more illegal activity. You need to get serious with folks. But I think as you start to remove individuals and you start to send the signal that it's not business as usual like the last 4 years, I think you're going to start to see that flow decrease dramatically. And then you'll see what kind of challenges you have, and then you put in new policies in place. I often describe border security as a game of whack-a-mole. You keep putting up new measures. The cartels keep figuring out ways to defeat them, and you keep playing this whack-a-mole until you get the momentum on your side. And I think that's what we'll see again next year.
What signal do you think? I mean, I the other thing I learned is how influential the cartels are. You mentioned them. What signal does a Trump White House send to them? Is it just, hey, we got to figure out what whack-a-mole we go around now, or is it we got to rethink our business model?
Another message to the criminal cartels in Mexico. You smuggle enough fentanyl across this country to kill 148,000 young Americans. You have killed more Americans than every terrorist organization in the world combined. And that's when President Trump gets back in office. He's going to designate you a terrorist organization, and he's going to wipe you off the face of the earth. You're done. You're done.
Well, I think they should probably rethink their business model. I think President Trump and his team are probably, they've signaled that they're going to be very aggressive with it, targeting the cartels and going after them. You've got to disrupt that business model if you want to have any success. We've viewed here in the United States the cartel issue from a law enforcement perspective for decades, and it's just not working. We're not seeing the gains. We're not seeing the reach that we need to stop their activity of human trafficking and smuggling narcotics and fentanyl across that border in the largest amounts. And so I think we need to be aggressive. I think the cartels are public enemy number one, and we need to treat them accordingly.
What do you think the role is with the Mexican government? Are they going to play ball with us? Are they resistant? How much should that play a role in what we decide to do?
Well, they're a critical partner. If we really want to be successful, if President Trump really wants to be successful, he's got to have some cooperation by the Mexican government. Exactly how you get them there, I think, is it's going to be a question. I think the government there is not going to be overly helpful, at least not initially. And so you've got to address that. You've got to use the leverage. The president's going to have to use leverage to get them to do certain actions that they may not want to do on their own. And we saw that during the first term, where they deployed National Guard and they took steps. They didn't want to, but they did, because they need the United States as a trading partner more than we need them. And that's not to say we should cut trade, but what I'm saying is the United States has the leverage over the government of Mexico in many respects, and we've got to be willing to use it for the betterment of the American people.
But do you think they, based on your experience, do they get that? There's a new administration from when President Trump left office. Yeah. Do they claim ignorance, like, oh, it's just the cartels, we'd love them to stop, but we can't? Or do they really want to affect change?
No, I think they understand that President Trump is very different than President Biden. I think they understand that they're going to have to make concessions. The question is, do they make enough concessions, and do they do it quick enough? What I saw from the Mexican government is they just slow roll you, right? They say, yes, we're happy to be helpful. And then 4 months go by and they really haven't done anything. There's been no measurable increase in any type of activity. And so then 4 months and then 6 months goes by. I think the challenge here will be to get them to do something very, very quickly, to have it to be an impact along our southern border. They're not going to want to do that, Sean. That's just not the mentality that they have, particularly with this president. But we'll see if President Trump and the new admin, a new Secretary of State, and other elements put enough pressure on them that they have no other choice, no other alternative than to implement some measures that protect Americans, while at the same time protecting Mexicans.
I mentioned this earlier in the show, but Trump being out of office for 4 years, there is somewhat of a silver lining in that groups like yours at America First Policy Institute have been able to think about big, complex issues and said, okay, if we get back in, here are some of the things that we do. And you've been able to bake them so that this administration can choose from several things. How important is it that these guys, I mean, I remember in 2016, we were kind of like, okay, we won. Let's figure out what we're doing. The work that you guys have done, how critical is that to these guys hitting the ground running on day one?
Well, I think undoubtedly it gives them a leg up. As you indicated, at least here at America First Policy Institute, we've been able to pull together some of the best folks that served during the first Trump administration. And these folks know what works. They know what policies to pursue because they've done it. And so we've laid those out both on white papers on our website, but also information that we're providing to the transition as well. So hopefully whoever they pick, whoever the incoming folks are and the team that hits the ground running on day one, hopefully is in a better position to start. And I think they will be. There's a lot of work to be done between now and January 20th. The transition team is getting hard to work. So we'll see how it unfolds. But I think they're better suited today than they were at this time in 2016.
No question. How critical, I mean, based on the resistance that you might have seen when you were there, how important is it the right people are in the right jobs to affect the change that we're talking about?
Yeah, no, it's critical, right? I mean, you can talk about policy all day, but people is policy, right? If you don't have the right leadership in there, if you don't have the right change agents, if you don't have the individuals with the stomach to do some of these hard decisions, and they are hard decisions for the American people, and stick with it, then it can all unravel and fall apart. But look, the people that the transition and the campaign have identified so far, I think they're going to do a great job. They know what the challenge is, and it is a challenge, right? We have seen 4 years of this administration breaking down the immigration enforcement and border security system. It will take time to build it back up, and that's the challenge for the team.
All right. Chad Wolf, thanks for joining us. Thanks for all the work that you did in service to the country and doing at AFPI. Guys, stay with us this week. We've got Dr. Peter McCullough. I'm going to ask you about the MAGA movement, where it stands. Steve Bannon is with us on Friday. It's going to be a great week. Stay with us. Hit that notification button. Subscribe to the show. And always tune into the morning meeting, 9 a.m. every morning on this YouTube platform. Thanks for being with us. See you tomorrow. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.